So, you're addicted to porn. The bad news, you're kind of fucked. The good news, you're not alone, and by clicking on this video, you've chosen to take the first step to recovery. My name is Aaron, and welcome to Quitting Together, where recovery doesn't have to be done alone. Porn addiction. It's something that has taken the entire world by storm, yet it's something we barely ever talk about in the public. Globally, the porn industry brings in $97 billion annually, and the United States is the largest consumer. Freedom! Each month, porn websites bring in more traffic than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. Over 35% of everything that's downloaded on the internet is porn. Every second, $3,075 is spent on porn. Right this second, over 28,000 people are currently watching porn. The average age of first-time exposure to porn is 11. And where it starts to get really dark is that 88% of the top porn videos out there all feature some sort of physical aggression. The average consumer of porn watches it 2 to 3 times every day. And these statistics include men and women, but men are far, far, far more vulnerable to porn addiction and to just watching porn in general. Statistically, every male you know is regularly watching porn. And the worst part is, because it's such a secret, we can watch the worst things imaginable without anyone ever knowing. And this has become a really big problem. So what makes me qualified to talk on this? Well, I am someone that has suffered from porn addiction in the past when I was much younger, just like any other young male, but not to the degree we have seen it these days. I've been happily married for about 10 years now, and I also have a daughter, and as soon as I had my daughter, my entire view of women in general completely changed, and now my heart breaks for anyone that I see that is involved with porn. I'm not judging you, I'm not chastising you, but to know that there is an innocent human brought into this world, and enough bullshit of life happens to them that eventually they feel either the need or the desire to want to have people they will never ever see or never ever know masturbate to them in order for them to make money. That breaks my heart. So I myself am a marijuana addict, and I'm addicted to tons of tiny things, social media, all kinds of stuff. But I'm lucky enough that at this point in my life, I am not addicted to porn. When I was much younger, I would consume it. And the very first time I ever bought porn was actually from a back room of a Blockbuster when I first turned 18. And honestly, I feel as though having those safeguards where you had to actually feel kind of embarrassed to go buy it was probably a really good thing. Now we can watch it freely as much as we want, and we can watch whatever we want, whenever we want, and no one has to ever know. There's VPNs, there's all kinds of things that can make it so that literally no one will know. And that is where it starts to get crazy. Imagine if there was any other drug as crazy potent and as dangerous to the mind that had no other side effects that people could see outright, right? Imagine if you could do as much heroin or hard drugs and you still seemed completely fine. That would be wild, and we would be seeing so much more death and destruction caused by those, even more than we already see. Porn has hijacked our brains in every way imaginable. It literally has caused us to be able to hijack our dopamine reward system and make it so that we can really easily see anything we can imagine. And the scary part is see things that we never ever imagined that we would be into. And all of a sudden, we're addicted to those things. Things that were once fantasy and impossible to see outside of your imagination are readily available, and there's new videos being uploaded all the time. And we need those new videos. Just like a movie you've seen before, once you know the ending, the movie isn't quite as great as the first time you watched it. But with porn, there's new videos coming out constantly to feed that need. And they have to come out constantly in order to keep people consuming it. And with it bringing in billions and billions and billions of dollars, there's a huge financial incentive to keep you addicted. The largest consumers of porn right now are 12 to 17-year-olds. We're at the point where our brains are getting hijacked at such an early age that this future generation does not have a chance. So there's a few things that have helped me and kept me from being addicted to this at this point in my life. One is I'm lucky enough to have a very happy and healthy relationship with my wife. Two is that I've done a lot of research on this topic and seen how many of my friends have been consumed by this. And three, I have a daughter. And as soon as I had my daughter, my view on women as a whole completely changed. I can't fathom what it would be like to have my daughter grow up and be involved in this industry. It's one of my biggest goals as a father, to raise her to know that she doesn't ever have to do that, and to make it so that she has enough self-esteem and self-respect that she feels as though that's never even an option. Now, if you are someone that is involved in the porn industry, I'm not judging you or chastising you. Everyone has different lives, and I understand everyone has different upbringings, and I'm not judging you. That's not my intention. But for me, I will feel as though I have failed as a father if my daughter becomes a grown woman and feels as though she has no other options in life, or that her best attribute would be to sell her body online to people that she will never know. We've created selling yourself online as a commodity, and you hear it talked about all the time. How many times have you heard when a porn star or something is being interviewed and they're like, well, the money is great. I love the money. I can buy my cars. I can pay for my house, blah, 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 blah. That's the exact same thing that every drug dealer has ever said. And with porn, the stuff you were watching is never enough because you need that new dopamine hit. For me, I'm addicted to weed. And if I were to smoke the weed of the 70s that came straight out of the ground, it probably would not even get me high. Instead, I will go into a dispensary and say, give me the strongest thing you have. Whatever is the strongest thing you have, that's what I want. And our brain does the exact same thing with porn. We did not evolve to ever have this level of gratification at our fingertips at all time. Our brain does not know what to do with it, but we create these new neural pathways just like any other skill you learn. If you're learning to play football or chess or music, you have to do it over and over and over and over again. And as you do it over and over again, you get better at it. But getting better at watching porn simply means you last a lot longer and you need something a little bit wilder in order to achieve that same satisfaction. Kind of how, the very first game of a NFL player's career, they're never going to be able to really have that same excitement unless they win a Super Bowl or something even bigger happens. They need something larger to happen in order to achieve the same level of excitement. And that's exactly what happens to our brains when we're watching porn. We crave more and more and stranger things in order to get that same dopamine rush. Fetishes have grown to include essentially everything. And to elaborate that, if you have a fetish or a kink or something very specific that you're into, the more that you have watched that online or fed that addiction, the more you feel as though you've needed that addiction. When you're having any sort of actual intimate time with a human, you find yourself thinking about that. And that's not great. If you're a single person, you now have limited yourself to anybody in the future is going to have to be someone that satisfies those needs and desires in order for you to be happy with them. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be fun to do certain taboo or out of the box things, but if you have to have that thing in order to achieve the goal of being intimate, then you've severely limited yourself. It's basically like saying, in order to eat food, I have to have a large amount of sugar in order to satisfy my hunger craving. I'm just not satisfied with a salad or with a healthy chicken sandwich anymore. For most of us, we would never want to see our children get into porn. We would never want to see a family member get into porn. Although that might not be true, because right now, the biggest categories on any porn site are stepmom, stepbrother, stepsister. Sometimes it's just a regular porn, but they add that in the title because that's what people are clicking on. And the really gross part is that skyrocketed during the pandemic when everyone was at home with their families. So how do we start to change this? Well, we have to start by thinking about it in a different light. For me, it makes me feel gross that I would derive satisfaction from someone else's pain. Because let's be honest, anyone that is doing porn regularly, there is absolutely some trauma there. No one just wakes up one day and says, oh, I think I want to do porn. And if they do, that's almost even more sad. When I was younger, I would have the thought, oh my gosh, their family must be so sad that they're doing this. And then I would have the second thought that, you know what, if they're doing this, they probably really don't have a family that's close to them anyway, blah, 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 and then kind of justify it. And now, as an adult with a family of my own, that breaks my heart even more. That somebody has felt the desire and need so much in their life to be loved that they have now turned to feeling the need and the adoration of strangers on the internet in order for them to feel justified or feel whole as a human being. Not to mention the craziness of what we're going to experience 10 to 15 years from now, when so many kids in high school, middle school have parents that openly had OnlyFans or have OnlyFans and their classmates see it. And now, I can't fathom the bullying that would take place. It doesn't mean that the bullies are right, but kids are going to be kids. And now we've put our children in a situation where their parent is up for everyone, for even them to see. And that just breaks my heart. But how do we break this addiction? How do we stop something that globally makes so much money and, quite frankly, feels so good? We're also suffering from a loneliness epidemic. Less and less people are getting in committed relationships. Dating apps are just basically swiping to decide if someone is worth your time. People are going on Tinder dates and watching as their Tinder date are swiping on future potential Tinder dates that might just be better than this one. So instead of going through the whole hassle of going on these dates and trying to meet someone and establish a relationship and put in all the work that goes with that, we are much more satisfied by just creating this addiction and feeding our own needs. Why am I going to wait for someone else to feed me when I can feed myself? But in the long term, you're creating a situation where you're the only one that can feed you. Anyone else that might try to feed you in the future just isn't going to be able to feed you the food quite the way you like it. They can't cook exactly the way that you like food prepared. And there will come a time in your life where you or someone you love will tell you this has become a huge problem. If you're watching this video, you probably already know on the inside that it is a huge problem, but you've tried to stop before with no success, and you feel as though at this point it's just hopeless. Well, like any addiction, you might need help. I have included links in the description of this video for porn addiction recovery, and I highly suggest at the very least you check those out. You're going to need an accountability partner, someone that can help keep you accountable and that you can report to, but you have to actually be honest. Find someone else that's also struggling with this. If it's really bad and you really want to quit, there are certain computer programs that you can put on your computer that will send someone you love a notification anytime you start to do this. Even just doing that alone may be enough to help you start to break the cycle. I've included that link as well. And finally, you need to replace the negative addiction with a positive one. Anytime you start to feel that addiction or that craving, you need to find something else, whether it's running, exercising at the gym, gardening. It could be literally anything that is a positive thing in your life. Now, granted, I get it. Running, exercising, and gardening, none of those feel as good as being able to jerk off to something that satisfies and gives you so much of a dopamine hit immediately. But over time, you will start to create new neural pathways in your brain that make it so that when you start to feel a certain way, you go and do a different action. Who knows, maybe you'll develop a running kink or a gardening kink. And now I just had to imagine what a gardening kink would look like, and that might be the weirdest thing I've ever had to imagine. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I know somebody with a gardening kink. But that's neither here or there. I'm simply here to tell you, you're not alone in this. Everyone is doing this. If you are one of the few lucky ones, as I am, to not have to struggle with this, help someone that you know that is. When you're constantly consuming this stuff every day, it blinds you. It causes you to not be able to see clearly and to feel as though you need this. But if you can find people in your life that can show you, hey, it's okay, I struggled with this too and I don't anymore, that's who's able to help you. I'm someone that still today struggles with marijuana addiction so much. If I were to start smoking right now, I would immediately start smoking again all the time. I can't do it just every once in a while. So while I'm not someone that knows what it feels like to compulsively need to watch porn every day, I do know what it feels like to compulsively need a dopamine hit constantly throughout the day, and I would get that through marijuana. If this is something you really do want to quit, you need to commit to some sort of power higher than yourself. If that's God for you, awesome. If it's a community that is larger than you, awesome. But no matter what, you need to submit to something that is able to help you get through this. I've been there before. Obviously, I know why people love porn. But for me, the fact that a human being is born, has enough trauma happen to them throughout their life, and then they grow up and feel as though they need to do porn, that breaks my heart. and I can't find pleasure in someone else's pain. But wildly enough, those are some of the most viewed porn videos out there. And I think it really kind of hints at a deeper part of our human biology. All of us hurt. And so we get a slight sense of satisfaction by seeing other people have some sort of pain happen to them, because it makes us feel like maybe our lives just aren't as bad. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the addiction to needing to feel as though we're the person in that video. If only our lives could be the lives of that person, our lives would be fine. And maybe you've made excuses to yourself. I need this because without it, who knows, I just would go crazy and I might just be trying to flirt with too many people and I say dumb stuff. And that's a personality flaw that you need to deal with outside of an addiction to porn. I used to say the same thing about weed all the time. It calms me down, it helps me to be creative. But now that I'm sober from it, I've realized how crazy that notion was. I'm actively choosing a foreign chemical or a foreign substance to bring me my joy. With porn, you're actively choosing a digital screen, a human being that you will never meet and that doesn't know who you are, to satisfy all of your sexual needs, to satisfy your deepest, darkest desires, and to fulfill them, and to satisfy your need to be loved. And in turn, it's causing you to be more unlovable. In future relationships, you now have this scarlet letter, this thing hanging on you that you have to continue even if you don't want to. If you feel as though this is something that has taken over your life, you need to talk to someone, feel free to either leave a comment or you can email me at the email address that's on the bottom of the screen right now. Sometimes just being open and honest and transparent with someone that you know will not judge you is the very first step you need to take. I will never judge you. I will never give you any grief. I will only offer you help. But I am not a psychologist. I am not a doctor. If this is something much deeper than that, you need to get professional help. There are anonymous helplines to help you get through this. If you have any advice, questions, or comments, put them in the comments section below this video. But listen, I am very proud of you for being here today, for taking this first step, because we all are struggling. Everyone is struggling. And you being here is a really good first step. My name is Aaron, and I'll see you on the next video.